sun is numb, the Keurig's clean, your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi screen. Ponzi screen, Ponzi screen, because it's just something to do.
David looks like shit. That's how I've started a couple times like that.
Have you guys ever heard of these words? This is something that's been going viral recently. They're called antagonyms, or they have a bunch of different. There's a bunch of different. Weirdly enough, there's a bunch of different synonyms for them, but it's the words that mean one word. They mean something, and they also mean its opposite. Like to sanction means both to approve and to punish.
Okay, yeah.
And are we talking about my ex-wife here, David?
Hey.
All right.
Ha-cha-cha.
Ha-cha-cha. With us today is band leader Rachel McCartney.
Hello.
Rachel, what's your Twitter handle? So
at Rachel M Comedy.
Rachel M Comedy. But yeah, so there's these words like cleave is also one. It means to separate and to unite. And that has just been coming up all the time. I feel like I've seen it like
in what, your Pornhub search?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my
cleave. Cleave means to unite.
Yeah, it's like
I've always thought
cleave together means to unite.
Cleave together. I always thought it was just sort of like we're cleaving away, or like it's like if you chop at a tree and you're taking out little triangles of it, like you're cleaving away at it. I didn't know idea. That's nah. I'm taking it. I'm taking it back. It's illegal now.
You're calling Oxford, Mr. Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually my first NPR appearance.
Yeah.
I'm really honored.
Yeah. Mr. Oxford and Mr. Monopoly both live together in a duplex and take care of various or they decide the antagonyms, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's another word for it, which is, it has some like really fucking, I can't remember the reference, but to some maybe ancient Roman myth about there's some guy who was two-faced, and they call it some like
Voldemort.
Yeah, they call it like a Voldemort word or something like that. Or they call it like a Mr. Two-Face word is also a Janus word. It's called a Janus because there's.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Janus was apparently duplicitous.
In addition to just having being in front of every new Hollywood cinema film between 1962 and 1985, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Duplicitously trafficked pedophiles for Woody Allen. Yeah.
That's right.
That's what it's named after. That's what the word is coming from. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's all I've been kind of seeing these days. It's come up like 4 or 5 times on my browse, on my scrolling. Rachel, what have you been seeing on the scroll recently?
Doom. I'm surprised you've been seeing anything but Doom. I'm honestly kind of jealous. Everyone is just like, there's a coup happening, and you're studying for the SAT.
Ah, that's funny.
Yeah, I mean that too. Yeah, it's been we've all seen the same thing, right?
Oh,
yeah.
This is actually in line with things. Elon became the richest guy, I think, for now.
For now.
Well, that's divorce. Do you have another late night my wife joke? Because that's what happened to Bezos.
Yeah. That's gonna be a real quick one. Well, Elon Musk's wealth or whatever it is so random. I mean, he's just like one of those wacky characters from a 2007 film who's just sort of like, yeah, he'll be the richest person in the entire world one night, and then the next night he will literally be crying in a gutter, like with his mascara, like sort of like dripping down.
This is like the male version of that Britney Spears song "Lucky."
Mm-hmm. Elon Musk is
what Danny was just describing.
Oh, okay.
Just being the richest man in the world, and then he's like crying with a mascara.
Oh, that's so true.
Just holding his shoes, just walking in the New York City streets. Just
he cries in his lonely heart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, he has like $180-ish billion today, but tomorrow.
So are him and Grimes married?
I doubt it. That doesn't sound very bohemian.
No, you're right. Yeah, but neither does $180 billion. So
$180 billion is whatever you want it to be.
Grimes, I was riding my bike and I was thinking this to myself. Grimes is like the same type of attractive that like Adam Driver is, right? Where she's like kind of
what?
She's
what?
Like she's kind of like grotesque, but also attractive. Like
I have to Google image her right now because this is pinging my bullshit meter.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
I think you'll find that.
No, she's much more conventionally attractive than.
I mean, you could maybe make the argument that Adam Driver should be the one named Grimes.
yes. He should be Grimes. My name is Grimes. that was his whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
his whole thing throughout the entirety of the series Girls was just being like holding. He was like the guy who was the bassist for who had sex with like 1,000 women or something like that, and he was kind of cool too, and he had like mutton chops. Who's that?
Are you talking about Keith Richards?
No, but that's
too.
The Ace of Spades, that guy. I gotta find out. So like the whole I
don't follow mutton chop porn. That's not my thing. So I can't really.
Motorhead. Lemmy. Yeah. His whole thing was that no. You'll get it. His whole thing was that he played the bass, and he turned the highs and the lows all the way down, and just turned the mids completely up, and that's how Adam Driver performs. He's just all mids, just like, hello, my name is Adam Driver. Like he doesn't have any dimension beyond that. In Girls from 2009 to 2000, I'm really
he jerks off like on camera. Like that's
this is the best. This is podcasting in a nutshell, where you're just like, this actor doesn't have any range, and then the other guy's like, no, he jerks off.
No, he jerks off. It's in the middle. He's just all mids. He's all mids, like Lemmy. Yeah, from Motorhead. Okay,
Anyways, welcome to Ponzi Scream, everyone.
Yeah.
Here we're talking about, I guess, financial scams and screams, and I guess, I mean, okay, how much do we want to talk about, like, last week? I don't, I've been wondering this because it's, in some ways, it's like, the elephant in the room, and it's all I see except for Antagonyms, and I don't know how much do we want to talk about it today, people.
Oh, you want to do another antagonym?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Coup and to coo to a baby.
Sure, that's that could be one. Yeah. For people who are maybe newer listeners or whatever, we cover white collar crime and that kind of stuff. So we usually don't talk about the craziest thing that happens, but what I will say is a lot of stuff happened last week, and
just talk to your parents about it, people. Okay, just
well,
we don't feel responsible telling you the information. This is what my 6th grade teacher.
We
told me
take
on
no
9/11.
responsibility. Yeah,
my 6th grade teacher on 9/11 was like, "I'm not going to tell you what happened. Just go talk to your parents, and they'll tell you everything." And we like all the other 6th graders got to go like watch the buildings and like watch CNN all day, and we had to sit there and like I heard during recess that like. My friend was like, yeah, I heard the Pentagon got bombed. And I was like, what's the Pentagon? And then at the end of the day, my teacher was like, yeah, some shit went down. Go talk to your mom about it.
No, David, that's not what you said. Someone said the Pentagon got bombed, and you said, did you know that Pentagon means 5? That's what you said. That's what you said. I know exactly. I know exactly what you said.
That was yeah. That's
point being, all I will say is that I have just one stock in Robinhood, the app. Mm-hmm. That's all. I just have one.
Oh yeah.
And all I could tell you is that it went up just like normal. Stock market's been going up as it usually has. So there was a lot of kerfuffle, but like, I don't know.
Oh yeah. I saw someone tweeting. They were like right in the middle, like when like the guy was on the podium with like a raised fist or whatever.
Yeah.
And someone just tweeted, Dow is up. Lol.
yeah. Yeah, that was fine. That was fine.
And like, I follow some Bitcoin people, and literally they were just like, I can't wait for it to hit 50K. I can't wait for it to hit. And like, you do realize there's an actual insurrection going on right now. Like, there's pretty amazing stuff. Some of these people are living in that little universe. I mean, it's hard to know what Wall Street feels. I think that they don't like instability, right? In general.
Sure.
I would disagree with that.
Government instability. Like investors really want government stability because that allows them to have their like 5-year outlook better.
But I would say like instability means you're able to like do shock doctrine shit. So anytime there's a crisis, more public shit is going to be sold off to investors and private companies, and that's going to be good for them.
True. That's true. Yeah, it could also be like, it depends on who we're talking about by like investors, because if it's like a mutual fund investor, like someone who just has to like keep the ship afloat for millions of retirement people, they're not going to like instability. But you're right, like someone who's shorting, someone who's doing some shock doctrine like Santander in what Santander is in Puerto Rico and stuff like that, they're going to be doing some maybe some instability. I wonder if someone's going to use this as an opportunity to like take stake in the IRS and sell it off and privatize it or something.
I don't think Wall Street has any long-term outlook whatsoever. Like I don't think they're even really concerned with government stability at all, because if they were, I mean, this is said on Twitter a lot, and I know that I live in a bit of a bubble, but I think it's true. Bernie was the compromise candidate. Like if they had any sense at all about like how bad things are and how, you know, what they're doing is not sustainable, but if you let Bernie in, they're going to have to pay more in taxes, but they get to keep their heads. Like if they understood that, they wouldn't have pulled out every stop to make sure he wasn't president.
Do you think that people will walk away with that takeaway from this coup attempt? Like that people will say, oh, we need to provide more economic opportunity?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Because, I mean, this was white supremacists.
Right.
Like this was crazy white supremacist QAnon people. And yes, the economic conditions of this country did contribute to making some people more able to be radicalized. But it wasn't primarily economic anxiety driving that particular insurrection.
Yeah.
It's not with like that's not the situation with QAnon either.
They weren't trying to
like
these were
the least sympathetic people who could possibly be attacking the Capitol.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yo, they defecated in a lot of stuff apparently.
That's funny.
It's
shocking.
No, honestly, props to them. Like apparently, like it came out where I think this is the funniest part is I think the government is being a little tight-lipped about exactly like what was stolen and what wasn't, but like something that is slowly just sort of like coming through like the grapevine is that like a lot of people defecated and pissed in like desks and stuff, which is like, dude, honestly, I would take a shit in Chuck Schumer's desk if I had the that would be awesome. That would be great if I could just like, Danny, you get one wish. You're in this the now Senate Majority Leader's office for 5 minutes. You could shit in this desk if you want. And be like, I bet that's gonna he's gonna be like, oh my, and then like back. He's gonna be really angry for a second, you know.
What was that voice that you were doing? What was that one again?
Oh
yeah.
My.
Was that like was that a Brooklyn accent or is that a?
He's just sort of like, he's an effete New Yorker, like,
That's Woody Allen if he wasn't a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My glasses are gonna fall off.
I can't see the shit you took in my desk without my glasses.
Yeah. Well, no, he'd be able to see it really good because his desk is probably like down here, and he's like, I can see it perfectly.
I actually love the low glasses thing that he does. I think it's a very funny look.
No, take it fucking back. I hate that look. No, I want to snatch those things right off his head right now and be like, get a good pair of glasses, you idiot. It's not 1982.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I could think of any senator's desk to shit in, I would want to shit in like Joe Manchin's desk, or
Yeah, him.
that would be a really good one to shit in for a lot of.
Yeah. Well, wait. Are we going just by senators or the entire Congress? Because I think you could. I think it. Old snowball guy.
Old Snowball.
The guy who brought the snowball in.
That guy. Is that
I brought him in
Inhofe? Jim Inhofe?
Yeah, Jim Imhoff, he'd be a good one. Jim Imhoff would be a real good one. I'd like that. There's some real esoteric shitty Congress people where if you just like took a shit or you just do it randomly.
Mhm.
Like you just go into like one of the representatives for like I don't know, like Tennessee, you go one Dem and one Republican. So like somebody in Tennessee,
bipartisan.
Bipartisanship.
That's
yeah,
gorgeous. Yeah.
one in like Tennessee and like one in like Nevada or something like that, and they're just sort of like nobody knows their name, like they've never heard, or like a Hawaiian representative or something. They're like,
Yeah, just
what?
someone who's been in power for
What?
40 years and no one even remembers that they voted for them for the past
Yeah.
30 of it. Yeah.
Well, they'll just be like, "Oh my god, I feel seen."
yeah. They're like, oh my god. I want, dude. That would be. I'm gonna look into that. Like, there's gotta be a rep or a senator out there who is just white bread. Nobody has ever said their name, like it with any kind of consequence.
I don't think anyone had ever said Tom Tillis' name until he was up for election this year in the competitive race in North Carolina. He's someone who I'm pretty sure no one has ever actually said Thom Tillis.
There's some esoteric northeastern corridor ones, like people in Connecticut and Rhode Island, who you're like, what?
Mhm.
Like there's a guy whose last name is Whitehouse,
Sheldon.
Representative Whitehouse.
Mhm.
Like you're like, aren't you supposed to be the president?
That's funny. I want to move on because I think this ties into some stuff that pre-coup we had planned on talking about a little bit, which was the Twitter suspension of the goat poster, truly, and
Sure.
that is the Twitter suspension of the President of the United States of America, and that people have been saying that in part happened because all like hundreds of Twitter employees signed this petition basically to have his account suspended. And I thought that was a very interesting development, that while in the background of like all of this, there's so many elements, so many moving parts right now. You know, there's so much stuff with racial injustice, there's stuff with income inequality, there's climate change is always in the background, and like every day there's a 9/11 with COVID. But there's a huge pushback, like both an antitrust pushback and a labor pushback on big tech right now. And the fact that Twitter I guess the question is, would Twitter have permanently suspended Trump were it not for their engineers and their other employees signing this petition?
I mean, you were saying we wanted to talk about this prior to the coup, but they didn't have the permanent suspension until after the coup.
Right. No,
and I think that's very relevant. Like,
No,
I'm not sure it would have happened.
I wanted to talk about something else, which is I wanted to talk about the Google union, basically.
They're sort of linked in a weird way, you know.
Right.
Like totally. Like, if we want to talk about the Twitter suspension, I think the pressure from the employees was probably a factor, but I don't think we can ignore the fact that the final straw was him literally inciting a coup.
No. I didn't mean that. What I meant to talk about before his suspension was the Google unionization effort. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, the thing that did it was the coup, but would the response have been how that would have happened? But for this week, Google workers, the first tech company ever. No, outside of there's another one, the fundraising one. They unionized.
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter unionized, but this is the first of the big monopoly firms. This is the first one that's had a union successfully, and it's Google. They unionized like last Monday, and then when the Twitter employees send around this petition, my theory is that this was a petition that I'm sure employees had been, apparently they'd had it for a couple months now, right? And had Google not unionized literally last week, then the Twitter petition may have had no teeth.
Dude,
Or less teeth.
I'm Rachel, have you worked in any kind of tech before?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know about you. I used to have a tech job, and I'm so excited that at the very least, like, teeny little dominoes for this are falling, because it is such a weird industry where you do have people who will get paid like $50, $60, $70,000 a year, but they're also working like 60 hours a week sometimes, and they have like no work-life balance. So Google's even though like people are being like, oh, they're just a bunch of like gilded unionists or whatever, it's like, no, you don't understand. Nothing in tech is unionized, like, at all. So the fact that it's like anything is just like a weird is like a nice step forward, because like up until now it's just been a lot of rhetoric from, you know, weird, you know, ghosts like Mark Zuckerberg who are like, we are striving to something.
Yeah.
And like nothing ever happens.
Also, if you want to change tech, like if you want to like have any sort of worker or like proletarian understanding of how like a business is run, the only way to do that is to unionize. And I find it like I find it very disconcerting that there are some people on the left who are criticizing Twitter employees for organizing just because they have high salaries. And
oh yeah, I mean that's obviously a bunch of stupid bullshit.
I mean, it's just like that. Like Twitter, all workplaces should be This is like the one thing that should be uniting the left, is that all workplaces should be unionized. And it's like, what is this resentment that like by millennial standards they're making a high wage, but by U.S. standards it's a very middle class, $60,000-$70,000 a year is a pretty middle class, you know, salary. That middle class people are unionizing. I'm not really sure what the enemy is there. That like they're not plumbers, they're not this like,
bitches be jealous.
Bitches be jealous. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And I think that the fact that it comes on the heels of this Google union, which is a very radical union, and I want to talk about a little bit about like what it is precisely, because it's not a standard union. And I think it's like it's a little confusing about like its structure, which is the best thing about it, I think, is that it allows for contracted employees to be able to join the union.
Yes, that's a big deal for sure.
Yeah, that's really good.
Because it's not a formal union under, you know, the National Labor Relations Act, like, you know, the Teamsters or whatever. It is what's called a minority union, which 100 years ago was the only form of unionizing that existed. Like prior to the New Deal laws, there was no thing like a standard union versus a minority union or whatever. Everyone was just this like wildcat union. And some of the like most prominent socialist and communist organizers were in the IWW, and the IWW was taking the biggest risks, doing the most concerted action, going like leading the strikes, getting the media attention that led to some of the biggest concessions in labor history prior to the passing of these labor laws. And so the fact that Google employees are doing IWW tactics, it is nothing but laudatory, in my opinion. I don't know. Am I preaching to the choir here, or?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Cool.
But you have listeners, so who cares?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. And people think like there was a New York Times piece that came out, I want to say 4-ish years ago, that talked about like the really intense working conditions in Amazon, and how when the recession happened, Amazon kept hiring, and it helped people, etc., you know, like have like these good paying jobs and what have you, and that it's like incredibly competitive to work at Amazon.
Yeah.
But I knew somebody who worked at Amazon, and I walked around the campus because I'm from Seattle, you know, so I was visiting, and I was walking around the campus, and this person was being like, you see the badges like that they're wearing? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, look at the colors. And there's like a blue badge and a green badge and a red badge and a gray badge. And she's like, everybody who has a blue badge is a contractor. So if you see anybody else, it means that is an actual like employee of Amazon, and there's just a sea of blue badges throughout. In fact, there was even a like sort of just a term, like you call people like that, they just call them blue badges because they're not actual employees at Amazon.
That is,
I like the phonetic similarity to blue balls.
Yes.
Like you're almost there and it hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
A blue badge really does sound like a sub genre, like a sub faction of like a Revolutionary War group. You know, oh, the blue badges are coming. They hate the lobster backs. Like, I don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, dude, that alliterative B really helps. Like, it sort of sounds like blue blood or boneless
chicken breast.
Bicken breast.
All right.
Yeah.
Keep it in. Don't edit that one out.
Yeah. But anyways, all those people were contractors.
Right.
So you have to include that mass of people, because if you don't, you're just missing out on a huge glut of people who work at these places, because more and more they're just becoming contracted people.
Right. And to be fair, this isn't the first minority union in the tech sector. There is Gig Workers Rising is like a coalition of
I'm gonna look that up.
Of gig drivers, of like Uber and Lyft and et cetera, drivers. They are technically a minority union because all of their organizers are independent contractors by law, and so they cannot join a union that, you know, a New Deal era union, a Wagner Act, whatever union. Whereas, so they're not alone in it. But what I think is just kind of amazing is that this is combining employees, engineers, who in some ways have some of the like most amount of like economic, social, and political capital in the tech sector by far, and also independent contractors, and also like custodial staff, and anyone can kind of join this, which is a pretty amazing, different. It's a departure from Gig Workers Rising. I feel.
Yeah,
like.
I mean it's good, but they also have less power.
Right. They can't compel good faith bargaining.
I mean, like, essentially they're a lobbying group.
Yeah, but they can go on. They can organize a strike, or they can organize some other concerted activity, and they cannot be discriminated against because of it. They can't be retaliated against. So it's.
I mean, if they're protected, I mean, like, the idea is they can't be retaliated against, but the idea is always that you can't be retaliated against, and that's just not reality.
True.
This is I feel like this is sort of an analog. Well, this is just the fact that it doesn't have as profound, like, sort of protective powers as sort of a traditional union has in the past, but the idea at this point, or at least the step in the right direction in my way, even though it is kind of just sort of like, you know, you don't know what's going to happen, is pushing that cultural, you know, lever a little bit more to the left in this case, because old-fashioned, just sort of like industrial jobs and what have you, it's like it's a stereotype at this point that it's like, oh yeah, if you work in like coal or gas or whatever, the CEO is just going to crush you and eat your bones, essentially. Like it's I mean, it's a joke at this point. Like, that's what happened 100 years ago. They still like doing that today. But tech has always skated along as being like innovative, or like, oh, we're fun, we're kooky,
Right?
It's great, you know.
And also, like, automation gets rid of jobs, right? Like, so software engineers are effectively doing the labor sometimes of what would have been like 100 workers, you know, a long time in some circumstances, right? So, like, the fact that even the people who are doing the software engineering and the people who are managing the automation are like becoming radicalized and are unionizing is undercutting one of the biggest, I feel like, kind of arguments, or one of the biggest tactics that employers use to, you know, to cut into labor.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there are always more jobs it's just not necessarily the people who were being employed before. Like all these tech companies, we're talking about the white collar professionals who do the coding or whatever, but then also you have the people in factories who are building the phones. So you still have very low waged exploited labor. It's just like that's not what's currently being included in the union. And I don't really know how you would organize over in China.
Oh, you wouldn't.
I don't think, I don't think independent unions outside of the state are allowed in communist China, of course.
Totally, but But what I'm saying is it's not even like these software engineers have gotten rid of the need for manual labor. We just have different manual labor, and we're exploiting people in a different country where you can't organize.
Yeah.
That's and I mean like we're also talking about like, you know, like these minority unions are good because they involve contractors or whatever. I mean, like I don't know how much progress you can really make. And I think the Google union is good and all that, but like it feels like everything right now is becoming contractors
Yes.
Rather than employees. Like I don't remember what supermarket chain it was, but in California, because of Prop 22, I think it was Safeway. They fired.
It was Vons.
It was Vons, yeah.
Yeah.
Vons. I didn't remember it because I'd never heard of it before.
It's one of those weird California grocery stores that they're always talking about in Los Angeles.
But yeah, they fired everybody.
Yeah.
So no more employees.
I think that that was their delivery people. I think that they...
Okay, well, there was definitely an actual supermarket chain.
Yeah.
Not delivery people, but like no more supermarket employees.
Yeah, no, their whole thing was that Vons was like one of the last sort of places that didn't employ one of those sort of like app-based kind of delivery systems, and like their employees were like they didn't get a 1099 miscellaneous. They got a W-2 at the end of the year.
Right.
And then
I think some of them were unionized also.
I think it was something like that. But yeah, then Vons basically, they were like the last ones. Vons Albertsons. I think that was part of the one of the things where they were basically like, all right, now we're switching to DoorDash, which is a trash platform. DoorDash sucks.
And one thing about like having some sort of like minority union, this like alphabet workers union, instead of just a bunch of employees speaking out, is that the more evidence you have and the more explicit you have that's saying, hey, I am organizing with my employees over concerted workplace conditions, that provides you more protection under the law, because that's evidence that can be used when there's some sort of labor dispute. Say, they discriminated against me because I posted this thing or I signed this petition with a union. And that will
that's good.
That would be used much more, much more clearly. Whereas if you're working by yourself, first off, you cannot, if you're doing something by yourself, that is not concerted activity, and that's not protected under the law. Second off, if you just like, me and a couple people were pissed about this stuff, it's not quite as explicit, and it might be pushed back against by management as to whether that was like an actual labor concerted activity and therefore protected.
That's what happened with fucking Trump's Twitter, is that it's like, look, they had years to actually get rid of him if they wanted. Like, Lord knows, there's plenty of examples of him just being an absolute psycho on there and inciting violence or whatever. But and like up until this point, because there was no actual pushback, Jack Dorsey and all those losers could just be like, we here believe in a something, like, and just not answer the question.
Right.
But if people got behind it and said something, and I guarantee you this had to have happened, because Donald Trump had 88 million followers. So
many of them fake.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, exactly. But it was just one of those situations.
Started by me. I created a lot of his fake followers.
Yes.
I admit to it.
You're a fake friend, David. But
are you broadcasting from Russia?
Yeah, you fucking weird. No, but no, like it just forcing that issue. I guarantee you, the engineer or some of the engineers behind Twitter had to have been like, okay, what happens if we deactivate the president's Twitter? Like, how much do engagements go down? How much ad revenue do we lose, et cetera, et cetera? And it obviously, if it didn't, change in any, if it was too much that they would have lost, they wouldn't have deactivated it. But just having all those employees force the issue probably made them look at the actual numbers and go like, all right, we'll take this.
And they were like, holy shit, Google just unionized last week and we are smaller than Google. This could happen to us.
Yeah. So it got the issue is actually forced. And like I said, there's no way they didn't look into this financially in some way
of course
beforehand. And it was because people were actually pressing the issue.
Yeah. I think that there was a little bit of like, hey, this is a statement in the public interest because this is a statement by the president of the United States of America. And so there was like regardless of what his content actually is, there is a competing interest always in just the newsworthiness of hearing the president speak. And it got to a point where his speech was outweighed by its dangerousness. So like maybe there was also the fact that motherfucker's leaving in 10 days or whenever this comes out. He's leaving, soon.
Now, dude, if I was Twitter, I wouldn't have if strategically, if I was Twitter, I wouldn't have banned him at this point because it would have looked incredibly like there would have been a ton of cowardice behind it. Like if you're going to ban him, you would have done it 1, 2, 3 years ago. Essentially, you would have been the vanguard of that. Essentially,
when the looting starts, the shooting starts. I mean, that's like, not.
Yeah. But they did it. I don't know. It's my belief that I think that they did it because of all the pressure put on it, and they use the cultural perspective of it as the reason,
I mean, I think the pressure from the employees was some factor, definitely, but I really don't think. I think 90% of it was the fact that he incited a fucking coup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
so the question is that was the employees the entire 10%, and without the employees, would it have not crossed the threshold?
I think it's like an interesting issue. What should a platform's role be in deciding what is dangerous speech? But I don't think there's really any way to know what happened behind the scenes of Twitter.
It's for sure.
It's I mean, right now we're all just speculating. I'm wildly speculating in this case. With the only sort of weight behind what I'm saying just by personal experience and what have you.
Yeah. And there is just like there are details that are relevant to the equation, and the fact that Google unionized 5 days before Twitter's petition all of a sudden had enough weight to be, something to be some sort of a factor is something that needs to at least be acknowledged and recognized.
All right, we acknowledge it.
All right, we acknowledge it. We see you, we hear you. We at Chiquita Banana.
We understand your concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, Rachel? Do you sort of where do you sort of like fall on the like wait, we can't censor people or we should censor people sort of like line?
I mean, I think when you have people who are organizing to bring actual white supremacist violence,
sure,
it is important to deplatform. Like, I do think that, like, Alex Jones became a lot less powerful after Twitter took his Twitter account away.
YouTube, yeah.
My primary reason for thinking that deplatforming should be on the table is because it's been proven to be effective. But the problem is when you say, okay, we're going to deplatform people who are dangerous, then how do you define what is dangerous? And the issue with all of these companies is as soon as you open the door for censorship, they are going to be using censorship to further their own interests, right, which are almost always anti-left.
Yeah.
And they've but the thing is, I completely agree with you, and I think that there is something that has already started raising eyebrows a little bit, with some like leftist people, like being deplatformed recently, or or ostensibly or whatever leftist, and that is something to be concerned about. But I think it is also important to recognize that if you look at some of these antitrust complaints, all of these monopolists have been manipulating information from day one in order to further their own interests. And it was pecuniary beforehand, but now it's political. But ultimately, they've never been neutral platforms. And I think that it bears. I feel like it just kind of needs to be repeated that, like, I just don't think that this is almost, in some ways, it is not that dramatic when you look at it in the perspective of the fact that Amazon has prioritized and favored all of their products on their own marketplace, and they
duh.
Yeah, and they're like they're like reading algorithmically, like reading prices of things that are top sellers on their platform and creating knockoffs that are like 10 cents cheaper, and they just do that on a mass scale. Facebook is
this sounds like their least nefarious business practice, honestly.
yeah, undercutting.
You're just like, they have a store brand.
Yeah, undercutting BIC is like the least mean thing that Amazon does.
Yeah, but that's just to say that if you run BIC though, and no one goes to shop at stores anymore, then everyone's facing financial ruin, because Amazon will always, by definition, cut into your business model. You will lose.
Yeah, so
never
the problem the problem you have is with the monopoly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if there were more marketplace options, or if they were not allowed to do some of those practices, then it would be that it's not the censorship itself in some ways. It's the fact that they're so big, and there are some like egregious things that they're doing that are cutting into their
Yeah,
self-interest.
I don't really know that if I would say this Amazon issue is the same type of thing. Like Amazon is a company that is trying to sell you stuff. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they feature their own products, that doesn't strike me as nefarious at all. What strikes me as nefarious is the fact that they have basically a monopoly on online shopping.
And they're able to do that through those practices, right?
I wouldn't even say that, because like, even if, I would say the primary monopoly they have is if you're buying something, you buy it through Amazon and it's shipped through their warehouse and blah, 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 rather than whether it's the Amazon brand or the BIC brand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think something with Twitter, it's a huge deal that basically the public square is privately owned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it's well. The other.
Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
Well, the other thing too is that like it's privately owned. I mean, I don't know. Whenever people talk about like, oh my God, this person got deplatformed, I always just assume that all the private shit is going to be like outwardly hostile to anybody like left of Bernie Sanders, essentially. Mm-hmm. So like, when people like Matt Taibbi and like and like those and like Glenn Greenwald are like basically free speech absolutists, and they're like, no, we have to allow everything. I always kind of take a thing. It's like, do you not think that we're gonna get attacked regardless? So it's like, I might as
wait. What are you talking about?
Like remember that thing that happened this last summer?
What do you mean by attacked?
Deplatformed. That's I should have said deplatformed.
Oh,
so like the Variety article that came out this summer, where that list of people signed it and were like, we are against censorship or whatever. I can't remember the entire
Harper's
list.
letter.
Harper. It was Harper.
So what
yeah.
you're
yeah.
So what you're saying is like, if we need to
that's totally different though. That's cancel culture, not deplatforming by Twitter.
You're right. You're right in like the specifics of it. It is dealing with like two separate issues, but
I would
Like-
say it's very separate because we're talking about deplatforming by Twitter of leftists, whereas
Sure,
the
sure.
Harper's letter, even though I agreed with it more than most leftists on Twitter did, it was largely people who were center right who were signing it. They were bitching about cancel culture, not deplatforming by these tech platforms.
But I mean, like, think about this. After Josh Hawley raised his fist in support of the coup, there was Simon and Schuster revoked his book deal, and people called that cancel culture. And I actually do think that there is an analog and pretty similar thing between what is considered cancel culture and someone literally losing a platform.
Well, there might
speak.
actually be. I mean, like I'm still. It's still in the air for me exactly what the amorphous thing is called. But yeah, maybe like I don't know. Maybe from like a lib sort of Democratic side, people call it the cancel. I mean, this is not the exact same thing, but like you could call it more cancel culture on one hand by one group of people, and another group of people calls it like deplatforming, and it gets mixed and meshed together. Like I don't think it's I guess point being is I don't think it's like one solid thing. Like obviously the issues that they're dealing with like have their own separate Venn diagram parts, but like they can mix a little bit, broadly
I think these are
speaking.
two very different things.
Yeah, I think they're actually pretty similar. So sounds like we're all in different.
Woo!
I
Oh,
think
there's there's
May
lots
I
of
lay forth my argument?
Let's
yes,
hear it.
please.
Let's hear it,
Yes,
Rachel.
yeah, I want to hear it. Yeah.
Okay, cancel culture, even though I think cancel culture picks a lot of really shitty targets and gets things wrong a lot, and I have complicated feelings about it, is something that comes from mobs. And a mob
Yes.
is the people.
Uh-huh.
So the
Okay.
people decide, we don't like this person is problematic, we're going to try to destroy their life or get people not to associate them with them or send hate mail or what have you. And that kind of stuff ruins lives. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. But that is the people deciding we don't like this person or we don't like this idea. And that to me is very different from the people who decide who can speak. So Twitter or any other tech platform saying we, the authority, are going to shut you up.
But they are ultimately.
It is coming from two completely different directions.
Yeah.
One is authoritarian. One is a perverse form of democratic.
So I see that. I mean,
Yeah.
they
like
are
they're
both private. So it's not. I think it's important to clarify. Like, this is nothing to do with the First Amendment, right?
But I think this is like why people want Twitter to be nationalized and why they're talking about that, because yeah, it's private. And yeah, currently I do think that these private companies do have the right to decide you can't speak on our platform, but you have to be realistic that if you don't have a Twitter account, you are deprived of basically the
Perfection.
place that people speak in public.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tech monopoly.
Yeah, I think you are right about that. The only analog I was making is that it's silencing something. So, but you're right that it is the difference is the difference between one person or like a boardroom of people making a decision,
but the boardroom
and then like a million people making the decision.
They don't make that decision unless there's a public outrage, and they do sometimes. Like if a tech monopolist is shutting people down or engaging in like some sort of behavior that furthers their own interest against the public interest and is not responding to public pressure, that is what you're describing in some circumstances. But most of these people, like losing your Simon and Schuster deal, getting by Josh Hawley, getting deplatformed, or like Louis C.K. getting all his HBO stand-up specials taken off, that is a response from like that is the PR wing of that company trying to manage what is ultimately a populist outrage at whoever is being on this. So,
but you're talking about very high profile cases. I think in those cases, you are correct. But those are not the only people that Twitter or YouTube or whoever will deplatform. I see big accounts that are not real world famous, but are Twitter famous, get taken down all the time. There was a controversy recently. They discovered that a bunch of people of color who had popular Twitter accounts were getting banned because there was this white supremacist asshole who had an in with one of the people who made these decisions.
Whoa.
And so he would just report these accounts and then brag about getting them banned. And you're not going to see that on the news because nobody knows who these people are outside of Twitter. And as soon as you start posting about it happening, that gets axed by Twitter support too.
Dude, that was you're right about that, where it's basically a situation where there's no bureaucratic resource to go through to ever have these problems see the light of day. Like one time, I won't say this person's name, but suffice it to say, they have a common name. Like they have a name like Rebecca or like Fred or David
Danny,
or something like that.
or Rachel.
And they also had a sort of generic last name like Smith or something like that. And I was like, hey, how did you get your name on Twitter? Like your blank blank. How did you get that? That's a really common name. And this person told me like, I actually knew somebody at Twitter, and the person who had this handle was like another person who like never used it, and it had been remained inactive for like years. So they like got rid of the person and gave me it. And I was like, what? That's what you got your name because you knew somebody in that that's that. And that's the thing is you can't fill out a form and like judiciously look through that. It's like it just gets buried in the sand, and that's a benign thing, But
and I think that both of those examples kind of go to show though that there has been some sort of these companies making decisions to cull out what they view as, for whatever reason, content that they don't want for a while. So this deplatforming of the president is not new in that sense. It's just a big name that they deplatformed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to deplatform anybody, deplatform the president after he's incited a coup. Or, deplatform him years ago because he was inciting white supremacist violence then.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think that deplatforming is good across the board. And I think it's a real problem that Twitter basically has a monopoly on public discourse and they're not accountable to anyone.
I think what would be interesting is if Twitter workers unionize, they could try to create some sort of standards as to like really what the terms of service are, because that's one of the things that I've heard people complain about is that the goalposts are constantly moved on what is violating of their conduct. And oftentimes, like I'm reading this story in the Times right now, I had to stop to do this shit, is people don't know what the terms of service are, and these CEOs kind of have to make gut decisions as to whether someone's violating or not.
CEOs aren't involved.
Well, with deplatforming Trump, they were.
Okay,
sure,
but like in more regular cases, it's
Right.
not the CEOs who are making these decisions.
No, definitely not. They weren't deciding on those like people of color activists. I'm sure that like Jack had no fucking clue. He was probably like a Zen retreat thinking about his money. But like, there's it is still a, I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but I think that it just goes to show that there are thoughts that they've been making these sorts of decisions for a while, and it's unclear what triggers them. And that's like a thing that people talk about a lot in like First Amendment law, when like the government is trying to decide whether to regulate speech or not. There's a whole area of law that is dedicated to when the government and how the government can censor someone's speech. And you get a lawyer. You can defend your rights, and you can have a claim if you've been wrongly censored. On Twitter, there is no claim. There's no process for deciding how and when that happens. It's just a gut check or a guy.
Yeah, it's a dead letter bin. It goes in there and maybe it might get solved eventually, but probably not. Like I know a litany of people where it's just like they just get banned or they just get have their account suspended for seemingly like nonsensical reasons. Like they didn't even say anything weird. and they're just gone, the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I that is
I had a tweet reported and I had to delete it to get my account back, and it was like the best joke I've ever made, and it sucks.
And now Parler, this is all going to change by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah.
Because the shit with Parler is crazy, because now all of a sudden Amazon Web Services, from what I understand, will no longer be hosting their platform, right?
Well,
so
yeah.
In addition to the upstream monopoly, there's in addition to Amazon existing in regulating its own marketplace and doing those sort of monopolistic practices, it also has an upstream monopoly of hosting web services. So Netflix, which is allegedly a competitor to Amazon Prime, has to use AWS. And all of these social media platforms have to use Amazon Web Services as well. And if, Amazon's not in the social media sector, but they have an upstream monopoly, which is technically has a different name for it, but for those purposes, it's an upstream monopoly. And now all of a sudden, if they deplatform Parler, they take away Parler's right to have web services. They just cut off their business ties, which they're allowed to do because they're a private business. All of a sudden, Parler will just go away. And then all of a sudden...
Well, they would have to re-engineer, and that's going to be a huge pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
And while Amazon does have like a huge market share, it's not like that's the only cloud service that exists.
It's not, but by huge market share, from what I understand, it's like above 50% of all cloud services.
No, definitely. And I did a project when I worked in tech where we were migrating from a data center to using Azure, the cloud service there. Mm-hmm. And it is a huge pain in the ass, but I would not say that the fact that Amazon won't host them means that they can't be hosted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things. Well, maybe what it is it's like the I mean, if you're going to play by the rules of like capitalism, which, spoiler alert, I don't think we should be playing that game. If it's like all these companies purport to be like, oh, we're doing this, we're playing the capitalism game and what have you. But then if you are Apple or Google Play for that example, like you have like the App Store or some version of an App Store, and you take Parler off of it.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like it's like, wait a minute, you said you were playing capitalism. You have to allow other people to do that. Like, have you ever tried to download an app off of just like a random developer's website? It seems illegal. Like, it's weird. You get like a weird link from a website, you click it, and then Apple, like an iPhone, is just like, are you sure you want to download this? This is not an authorized app. And it's just from like a friend. Like, I did that through a delivery service once. They're like, oh yeah, download our app. And I was like, it seems like I'm downloading a virus. Like, there's no other thing to do that with. And they're just not playing by their own set of rules, essentially.
Right. So I think Parler is also being contested as maybe being removed from the App Store, right, on Apple and Google products. I think that's also kind of being thrown around and being discussed.
No, it is. It happened. It's happened.
Yeah, they kicked it off of Google Play. But because Google and Apple are not going to put them in their app stores, rather than because they can't get hosting.
Fair enough. That's fair.
Yeah.
But either way, those are three big firms, Google, Apple, and Amazon, that are all basically responding to whatever they see fit and just cutting off, whether for good reasons or for bad reasons. I think we can all generally agree that Parler seems like a social bad, but they are deciding that this platform should not exist, and they are going to cut it out, and basically Parler will probably die as a result of the decisions of like private tech monopolists. And it takes three people to decide to do that, which is an amazing amount of power. I mean, imagine if one of them said, no, I like Parler.
Sure. Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
it's an amazing amount of power, but it's just like, it's funny to me that we're having this conversation now rather than before, when they were just shitting on the left. And I guess I'm more talking about Twitter there, where they would suspend people, or Facebook especially. Like Facebook's moderation is some of the worst in the fucking world.
Horrible.
Where they will ban you for making some joke like men are trash or whatever, but you can just call a woman like a cum dumpster and say you're gonna rape her, and they're not gonna do anything.
Yeah, Facebook is openly supportive of, like, its algorithms are openly supportive of the right. I mean, this is like well documented.
Yeah.
Time after time again. It's like in the congressional record that Facebook favors right-wing contents.
Yeah.
And yeah.
There was an interesting statistic that it was like 60% of the time someone joins an extremist right-wing group on Facebook, it is because Facebook recommended it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, they recommend. Yeah, they had to stop recommending. I just wrote a piece about this recently. They stopped recommending groups, I think 10 days before the 2020 election, which is like a little late, right? Like a little late
in the game
for that to happen. Like most people already voted by that point, right? Like that's not really a huge change, and I'm not sure whether they've actually removed recommending political groups or not. But they've always been far more conservative.
I didn't know if they even had, because I thought it was like recent that people were joining these extremist groups because Facebook recommended them
over the course of 2020, but literally in the like a week before the November election, they turned it off.
Facebook, they've always been on the cutting edge of like weird serial killer vibes in terms of like what they're willing, like the most benign thing Facebook has done is recommended a friend request to somebody who's actively been dead. Like dead. They're like they got a gray or sepia tone profile thing, something that's obviously happened, and they're like, you should be friends with so and so, and you're like, they died 2 years ago.
Have you guys entered into Facebook? You're like next of kin in the event that you die, who will take over your Facebook account?
Oh God.
I mean, it's so funny, like the idea that my Facebook account still needs to be, maintained after I die.
No,
I'm gonna put somebody who's really a poster. Continue to post in my voice. Thank you.
No, the only thing Facebook is good at in the current iteration of it is me posting into the void to see if I can get a new roommate, which I still do need. If anybody needs a roommate out there, and then it's also just turned into Craigslist, where you can go onto Facebook Marketplace and like find like a rare sewing machine for a very good price. Like that's the only thing. Yeah, it's good for at this point.
It's a birthday tracker for me. That's all I use it for at this point.
Yeah, I don't use it at all. I use Messenger, which is probably the worst thing because I've had so many like private conversations that Mark Zuckerberg could read whenever he wants and is probably sold to 2 million people already.
Absolutely. So I want to go on one final thing before we sign off, which is just kind of, we talk a lot about like the influence of this sort of privately held capital in Silicon Valley, which is, and if we're going to talk about that, we have to talk about venture capital and how they have just this ability to completely not really allow for this like fair competition that they purport to believe in under the rules of capitalism. Like this, there was this piece that Danny flagged from actually the end of November that Charles Duhigg did in the New Yorker about venture capitalists deforming capitalism itself. And I thought it was just something that if we're going to be thinking about privately held power, this is ultimately where it's lying. These are the people who are deciding whether it's going to be Google or Ask Jeeves at this, and
it's the roots of the issue. And I mean, in this specific article, it talks about WeWork, which really had a very WeWork, essentially their implosion was a pre-corona event. It all happened basically throughout 2019, I would say pretty much the entirety of the year, and the whole point of the article essentially was how they were essentially trying to paint Adam Newman, the former CEO of WeWork, as like a crazy person. which, in its defense, he is. He is.
Yes.
He has like Epstein brain, where he's like, I'm going to be a trillionaire, and like all that stupid shit.
Yeah, you know the problem with Epstein.
Yes, one of his more minor problems
is that he wanted to be rich. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, that's the second worst thing about him, I guess.
But the other part about it is the Adam is that not that Adam Newman is crazy or unstable or uses like speak, when he's talking about his grand aspirations, but the fact that like there's a guy in the background from Japan who is coincidentally in charge of Saudi money that he gets from MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, that he is specifically encouraging crazy behavior, and that those people behind those like billions of dollars, they're never the faces of just like
right
this insanity. It's always the eccentric billionaire like an Elon Musk type, which again, Elon Musk, he's really easy to make fun of. Please make fun of him. It's very funny. Continue to do that. But also, it's the people giving them the money that should take a fair amount of the blame here.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the New Yorker article actually did a really good job of that.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, they made them.
It was so good. Yeah, I mean, like reading that whole article was just like, oh, it's the financial crisis again.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just like this is the lead up to The Big Short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in like a micro scale. But it also is.
But it's not even really a micro scale.
Yeah, because WeWork is like the second biggest private real estate holder in New York City at this. Like behind or no. That's NYU. It's like NYU. At one point, it was like the Catholic Church, NYU, and WeWork were like the three biggest holders of real estate in Manhattan. Before this whole thing kind of came to light.
It's really a toss up for most per capita pedophiles.
Yeah. It's going back. It's like who's the worst pedophiles in New York City? Is it like a weird deacon up on like 47th Street in like a gigantic church that was made in 1847, or is it a creepy film studies professor?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with
Tisch somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with NYU's School of like Interdisciplinary Undergraduates called Gallatin. That's mostly pedophiles, I'm sure.
But point being is that like again, if you want to play capitalism game, a person like Adam Newman doesn't make it past the first. It's like stage 2. He just dies out because he's insane,
Right.
and he gets like killed by the mafia because he makes the wrong person angry, or he accidentally overdoses on some weird like analog of PCP, or he smokes too much weed and
he got kidnapped in the Maldives on his 3-week birthday.
Yeah, exactly. But
I mean,
under this situation, he just keeps going because he keeps getting money.
Adam Newman really reminds me of Trump in a lot of ways, in that there are a lot of investors behind him while he's still at WeWork, and just know he's crazy but want to ride along with it because the money's so good. And once the money starts, it might not bring back the returns. Then they cut him. They cut it like right off, and that's kind of what's happening with Trump right now. In some ways, is like once it gets to a point where he's not president anymore, and he literally is like, it is the ledger is making it more of a red situation than a black situation. That's when you cut him out. And that's what they did to Newman. As soon as it came, like he put out this S1 for their IPO, and it was wild. Like they had just and literally wild. There was photos of like endangered species all over it from his wife, who like loves the animals and stuff. Like just one of the craziest S1s that anyone's ever read. Everyone knew it was bogus, and there were all these allegations of sexual assault. There was totally misusing money. He was buying real estate and then leasing it out to WeWork, which is a huge conflict of interest. There was just some of the craziest shit. Like his wife wanted everyone to be vegetarian at WeWork, like require vegetarianism, which is amazing. And finally, the employees, or not the employees, sorry, the venture capitalists they just are afraid to speak for so long because they don't want to come across as uncool. Or it's kind of my takeaway from it.
Founder unfriendly is how they phrased it.
Yeah. But they're
they're just like, that's the other thing is like a lot of it's like you have people who are actively insane like Adam Newman and like don't have any sense of like the cultural moment. But then you also have the investors who are even 30 years behind him. So you just have a lot of people who just do not understand what is socially acceptable or just culturally with it at the very most benign, you know? So they're like,
I mean, sorry, go on.
No, I just think it's so funny that it's like you got all these, like you have investors who are wearing Patagonia fleeces and they think that's the coolest that you could possibly wear. And they're like, yes, we're going to listen to the guy who likes to smoke weed on a private plane. Like he's like, yeah.
I will also, who doesn't like to smoke weed on a private plane?
That is
come
cool.
on.
That is cool. I take it back. That is cool.
TFW, you hotbox your co-pilot.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the article did a really good job of laying out how like there are these perverse incentives where there's so much money that the only way to make money is by going for instant domination.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like they were saying, if a company can't take $1 billion right now, it's just going to go to their competitor.
Yeah.
Because what everybody is playing for is the huge fucking payoff.
Right.
Of like an Alibaba or whatever, and they're not interested in making smaller amounts of money.
Right.
So it's the same shit with like all the real estate, like all that trading, and we're just going to gamble like crazy because the losses are not going to stick to us, whereas like a huge win is going to.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't really think these are cultural problems in the sense of people don't understand that rape is bad or whatever. It's that morality doesn't matter when you're in this crazy system of we just need to like have one thing go super mega rich and then we're, glamorous and set for life.
And even after this, they still made money. Like they still walked away. They got rid of Newman after he was too much of like a PR risk, right? And now they have a new CEO and WeWork is like, but for the pandemic is looking like it's going to be just fine. And the weird thing about the perverse incentives of venture capital, it's similar to private equity in that regardless of performance, the private investors make money either way. They're going to walk away with something no matter what.
Yeah.
They're insatiable. I mean, keep it. And it's like you guys were both saying, it's like they make money, millions of dollars sometimes on these things. And I just look at it and I go like, Jesus Christ, if I had $1 million, it's like it's like I'm not going out there and doing the Amazon or doing the Jeff Bezos thing where it's like now I need to start a rocket ship company. Like it's like no, I made $1 million. That's it. I'm taking it and then I'm gonna make it last for 40 years if I can. I don't need $1 billion. I don't need 2 million.
And that article was so crazy it actually made me like Elizabeth Warren for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, when was she mentioned in that article? I don't remember.
Oh, that's right.
She wanted to regulate shit.
Oh yeah.
Wait, I think that may have actually been in the Google one.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, Elizabeth Warren is just one of the kind of like, she just takes sort of milquetoast to sort of kind of advantageous stances like we need to regulate the tech industry more. She'll just say it. She just says that. And that's like the best part about it. But yeah, it is weird when you're just sort of like, damn, Elizabeth Warren is the good guy. In this
generally,
article,
generally, yes.
Generally,
like
very generally speaking.
She was calling for $2,000 checks as well, like recently. I mean, like, there's not the best in a lot of ways, but I think that the weird element of it is that the growth oriented aspect of it, you need $1 billion or else you're gonna like fuck you, we're gonna give it to someone else, is also tied to the monopoly powers, which is like we need to compete with monopolists. And if this venture isn't going to be able to do that, then it's just not worth our fucking money. So we need to have an absolutely insane rocket ship style growth at any given point, because that's the best chance that we have for you to either make enough money where you're going to be bought by one of these monopolists and we'll make a fuck ton of money, or you'll be able to survive within this little, within this just absolutely oversized and grotesque marketplace.
These are guys that losers. You know, they're not schemers like me. All right, they don't even like scheming. Who doesn't get a rush from buying a fucking Fender amp off of Craigslist for $100 and then selling it for $120?
Why did you just start doing a Seinfeld impression?
No. This is fun. I remember when I was 18 years old. You scour Craigslist. You got scheme brain going. You're like, I'm gonna buy this thing for $100.
I remember when my girlfriend was 18 years old. I was 39.
I was 39. God, that's so. Never forget that he did that. It's so weird. It's so uncalled. But yeah, these people, they have such a lack of imagination. They're just like, oh, I want to. It's like their whole thing is like, we want to, take over this thing. But you don't want to do. You don't even want to play the game. You don't even want to get into it. You just want to make $1 billion real fast.
I mean, I think the depressing thing that we're kind of not acknowledging is their behavior is totally rational.
Yes.
Like in the hellscape that we live in, what they are doing makes sense. This is what makes them the most money.
Yeah.
And
You can have everyone making individual rational decisions in a completely irrational system.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. I mean, if we want to talk about regulating capitalism, what they're describing at the beginning of the article with WeWork by selling, or I guess by renting these places for below market price so nobody can compete, that's called dumping. That's illegal.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to sell things for less than they cost because that's an anti-competitive practice.
Right. So if we're gonna have these rules, like, this is the kind of Warren Scold that you want to see. If we're gonna be within this system, then it helps to have a Warren Scold be like, no, you shouldn't be having these sorts of competitive this sort of dumping practices.
Yeah, I mean, the problem here is unregulated capitalism. Like, this is the type of thing that will really make you into, like, oh, Elizabeth Warren, blah, 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 even though, obviously, what we need is, like, way bigger reforms than that, and you need...
And thinking systemically.
So many changes, so many systemic changes beyond the type of rules that she would lay out.
Right.
But without those rules, you are just having a setup where the only companies are going to be monopolies.
Right.
The way the article put it was good, where you have disruption with no social purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where is the manager? How can one talk to the manager if there is no manager?
What? Of capitalism? Is that what you meant?
I want to talk. No, like, I want to speak to the manager, but there's no manager.
Oh, I heard the rocket
Karen
ship.
implosion.
Yeah.
I heard it.
Me blowing your mind, David.
One thing I just really want to point out, just one fun thing about the article, was they were asking for underwriting from JP Morgan, and I think some of the investors at JP Morgan literally compared Adam Newman to Mother Teresa and Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Also,
I mean, both people I don't love.
Yeah, Mother Teresa. Yeah, it's like
Mother Teresa was a sadist. Lin-Manuel Miranda, I mean...
Also a sadist.
Talented, yes, but ultimately a lib.
Yeah, very good on the piano, I'm sure. But I did watch the Hamilton recording that went on Disney Plus, and I was like, oh man, this is what people were blowing their minds about. Like, this is what they were freaking out about. Is like, I'm gonna push back. The rap was bad, but it wasn't as corny as ever. It was just like,
the problem wasn't even the production. The problem was that people I don't liked it.
it was the worst.
That's 90% of my problems with most things.
No, it was like Eminem level rapping. All right, like, that's as corny as it got.
Eminem is very talented.
He's that's the worst it got. That's the worst it got, was just sort of like weird. And I'm not talking like speed run Eminem, where he could just be like, "Bubba da bubba da bubba da bubba da bubba." It never got that good. He's very talented when it comes to just stringing a bunch of words together. But that was the most embarrassing. It's like the most embarrassing it got was like Toy Soldiers era Eminem.
Look,
that's what that. Yeah.
In 15 years.
Okay, how about now you get to watch her leave out the window. Guess that's why they call it window pane, Eminem.
Yeah. Okay. He's very. Look.
McCartney apologist here. Straight
Yeah.
out 8 Mile. Rachel McCartney, everyone.
No, that
Yeah.
was a bad one. I was like, let's throw out an actual bad Eminem rap.
Okay.
Yeah.
A bad lyric.
I was throwing you a bone.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we were talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda. And
Why do we like him or not? I don't know. I just thought it was funny that they like compare like the amount of fluffing that they did in order to be the underwriter for this like clearly megalomaniac in order to get this thing secured. I loved it. I thought it was a very
He
funny
was unfortunate. He's unfortunately too tall. He's like 6'5", 6'6", and nobody's ever punched him because he's too tall. He's too high up there. You know,
absolutely.
you can't reach him.
This has been Ponzi Scream, everyone. Thanks for listening in.
David with the
Gotta land this ship.
landing. Oh God.
I don't know. Does anyone else have anything else to say? Rachel, anything you want to plug?
I have a Twitter account.
Okay.
It's hell. I'll never leave.
Hell yeah. Okay. Well,
At Rachel M Comedy. Goodbye.
goodbye, and follow us too, Ponzi_Scream, and Okay. Well, that's it, guys. Take care. Have a good
All
one.
right. Bye.